The Chicago Bears have made it through the bye week this season through week 6 with a record of 4-2. And with their toughest battles coming up within their own NFC North division. As a matter of fact, on today's episode, I'm going to talk about why the battles in the NFC North may be one of the best in football this year as we go forth, waiting for those divisional matchups to start in week 11 for the Chicago Bears. Talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about how Ryan Poles is starting to rectify his bad decision in signing Nate Davis in one of the more passive-aggressive ways, but in a way that's leaving a clear-cut decision made on the troubled right guard for the Chicago Bears, and luckily he's not playing for them. We're also going to look at how Kevin Byard has really been a revelation for the Chicago Bears so far, and how DJ Moore and Matt Eberflus have talked about Shane Waldron's decision to go to scripting the plays for the Chicago Bears and how that's helped the Bears offense get out its rut. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Chicago Bears Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. I want to start off talking about the NFC North, which may be the toughest division in the game of football, and I'm going to lay out the reasons why. That's not hyperbole when I say that. As a matter of fact, when you look at the NFC North so far, the Bears and the Packers are both at the bottom of the division, tied for the bottom of the division with records of 4-2. Those records of 4-2 would put the Bears and the Packers at first place in 5 of the other 7 divisions in the NFL. That's how tough this division has been. As a matter of fact, when you look at it, the NFC North right now has a combined record of 17-5 through the first 6 weeks of the season, which is a combined win percentage of 77%. This is the first time in NFL history where a single division has combined for a win percentage of over 75% through the first 6 weeks of the season. The NFC North is making history with how tough and close this division is. And none of that is hyperbole. That's just facts. And when you look at it as well, most of these NFC North teams, while having solid offense as well, are being led by their defense. All 4 teams in the NFC North right now rank in the top 7 of takeaways and turnover differential in the NFL. The Packers right now are first with 17 takeaways across the first 6 games of the season. The Bears and the Vikings are tied for second at 13. And then you have the Detroit Lions at number 7 with 10 takeaways. This is a stingy division in the NFC North. And this is going to be one of the things that help dictate the matchup and how it can go for the rest of the way. The NFC North and the Bears' own matchup in the NFC North. I was on record at one point saying, you could still, without beating the Packers, you can win the NFC North. With the way things are shaping up right now, no, you're going to have an amazing, not just a good, but an amazing record in your division if you want to have any hope. Now, I'm not saying that the Bears are going to win the NFC North. I'm not saying that. There's a possibility, especially with injuries and how that's going to affect the NFC North right now with the NFC North and their win percentage. Of course, that can change as injuries and other things go through it. The Detroit Lions are going through that with Aiden Hutchinson right now, trying to figure that out, trying to weather that storm with missing him for the rest of the season. But right now, through the 2024, all 4 NFC teams rank in the top 7 of takeaways. That's crazy. They also rank in the top 7 of protecting the ball. So when you look at this right now, the fact is that the teams in the NFC North are getting takeaways while also taking care of the ball on the offensive side of the ball. That's going to mean that these divisional matchups are going to be very stingy matchups, and the defense may dictate how well the offense can take care of the ball is going to dictate how these matchups can go. As well, when you look at it as well, all the NFC North teams represent the top 4 in point differential through the first 6 weeks as well. Again, especially with the Bears defense not giving up 21 points in a game, the Bears right now are 3rd in the NFL in point differential. But we're 4th in our own division when it comes down to it. That's what's crazy about all this right now, right? So when you look at this right now, yes, you have to dominate the turnover battle in the NFC North if you want to win this division. And that's something that all these teams are going to look for right now. all four teams in the NFC North as well in the top half of the league in points scored. And that's Minnesota right now, 14th, right? When you look at it right now, they played one game fewer than the other one, so they can very well rise into that when it comes down to it. The Bears are coming in at number 12 as well, so you look at that. And then on the defensive side, we're all in the top 10 in defensive points allowed and all in the top 8 in terms of defensive points allowed per game. This division is the toughest in football, and it's not even close. It's not even close, right? So when you look at the Chicago Bears as well, right, we've benefited from playing with the lead in our past 3 games, which is a big thing with that. We've trailed in all of the games at one point as well in that, but it is what it is. And the Bears also, we've played with double-digit fourth-quarter leads and have only, when it comes down to it. So the Bears right now, when they're looking at how they're trying, how they've been tested, they have not been tested in the way that our rivals in the NFC North are going to test us when it comes down to it. And for the Bears to have any chance of having a winning record through our 6 divisional games, it's going to have to come through the performance on the offense and the defensive side being really good for the Chicago Bears. And so, right now, if the Bears were able to keep up how we've been scoring in the last 3 weeks, it'll put us in the top 10 as far as scoring offense in points per game in the NFL. Now, the question is, are we going to be able to keep that up is the question, right? In 2023, 8 of the top 10 scoring offenses in the NFL on point per game basis when it came down to it made the postseason. So the Bears being in that area right now and how we've been projecting, that's going to give us and increase our chances to make the postseason. Now, again, the Bears haven't faced off against the best competition, but the best competition for the Bears is coming within our division. And so that's where you have to stand at it as well. Then when you look at it as well, one of the things in the NFC North that we're doing right now as a division, right? We are killing teams in our ability to get to the quarterback. All the NFC North teams are getting to quarterbacks at a really good rate when it comes down to it. The Vikings, of course, have been the best at getting to the quarterback this season. They've made it difficult on really good quarterbacks so far this league. And then you look at the other 3 teams in the NFC North. All of us are in the top 11 of pressure percentage, with the Chicago Bears still being 4th in getting pressure on the quarterback. But we're 4th on our division, right? Which tells you how good that division is as far as getting to the quarterback. Listen, this is a tough division. The Bears, unlike though, are doing it without blitzing. The Vikings and the Lions rank in the top 5 of blitz percentage, whereas the Packers and the Bears rank in the bottom 10 of blitz percentage. And that's been something that's really helped the Chicago Bears teams, that were able to get pressure on the quarterback without needing to blitz a whole lot. But that may have to change when we get towards playing against. We may have to mix up what we've done so far in being able to have success in this NFC North division. All 3 teams, 3 teams that are in the top 10 in pressure. Again, that comes down to the Bears, the Vikings, the Lions. We're top 10 in getting to the pressure, putting pressure on the quarterbacks. And so right now, the Bears and what they've been able to do, the trajectory that the Bears have been on, are putting us in a really good spot. Now, that trajectory may be a little skewed by the fact that we've not faced off against some of the better teams, which is changing in the second half of the season. We've talked about it, how much more difficult this schedule is about to get for the Chicago Bears. It's about to get difficult. It's about to get tough for the Chicago Bears to really maintain their footing. The question is have the Bears built enough confidence? Have they built enough as far as figuring out their system and how to use their players to where we can withstand it? The NFC North is going to be tough. And while there are a lot of Bears fans who, have overreacted to some of the Bears' success, listen, the overreaction, we've struggled for years, right? So I understand the overreaction. I'm not here to take away from any of that for any of you guys, or to shit, on your happiness. But we got to keep it in perspective. This NFC North is tough, and we got a challenge coming up in the NFC North. And when we come back from the bye week in week 8, right, we got a couple of more games before we start facing our divisional opponents. But then we go into that gauntlet where we face 3 of our divisional opponents all in a row. Then we have a break against the 49ers, and then we go right back into the division, right? 6 of our last 8 games are against NFC North opponents. And that's just something that's tough right now. The NFC North is making history. And I love it. I love the fact that the Bears are part of that history so far right now. But the story ain't done. The job ain't done. You can't rest on your laurels right now. This is the time where you need to take, and hopefully the Bears are using this bye week to take what they've seen, what they've had success on, and find a way to build on that. And we're getting some players back. Ryan Bates coming back, right, from IR. I think Travis Homer is going to come back as well after the bye week, I think, right? As much as he's going to help for whatever that's worth. But the Bears got to dig in, man, because what we've done so far has been great. The success has been there, and we deserve to celebrate that success to a degree because of what we've been through, what we've seen for this team over years. Celebrate all the success. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum when it comes down to the confidence that you have in this Bears team. It's great that we're even in the spot where we can have confidence in the Chicago Bears. Because right now, listen, we haven't always been able to have that type of confidence in this team. We just got to keep it pushing. We got to keep it going, and we'll see what's gonna be there, man. We'll see what's gonna be there. Let me know your guys' thoughts. In hearing all this about the NFC North and where the division stands right now in the game of football defensively, these are gonna be some old school defensive matchups, and the offenses that can weather the storm may be the ones that win, that help their teams win in this division. And I think that that's an important part. And Caleb, being a rookie quarterback in a division that's getting pressure and beating up quarterbacks, listen, we got to be prepared, and that is why the offensive line got to be ready as well, which we're going to talk about this offensive line a little bit later on in the show. But let me know what you guys feel on that down below. Now, with that said, I do want to acknowledge a player. I've been, acknowledging players that have kind of gone, not necessarily unsung, but maybe unnoticed to the level that they really output. And we got to give up some love for Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard was a signing that when the Chicago Bears made it to upgrade from Eddie Jackson, the one thing that we said here is that, listen, Eddie Jackson just hadn't been healthy. His performance had been going down. So bringing in somebody that was going to be able to perform, better than Eddie Jackson was the key there, to just upgrade that position. And Kevin Byard so far throughout the season, and while the stats aren't going to jump out at you necessarily, right? 26 solo tackles. He's on pace maybe to have one of the highest solo tackle rates in his career at 26 already. So that's really good. 39 total tackles on the season so far. He doesn't have any sacks. He does have a fumble recovery and an interception so far on this. 3 passes deflected. When you look at last game, Kevin Byard and the awareness that he had to break up that pass in the end zone, Byard has been absolutely phenomenal for the Chicago Bears, and he's also brought some veteran leadership to a secondary that had veteran leadership in Jalen Johnson, but overall the secondary is still very young. Even though Jalen Johnson is a veteran in this league now, being in the league for a handful of years, he's still a really young player as well. Like, he's only, a year and a half older than Kyler Gordon, right? And so bring Kevin Byard's leadership that he's brought here, as well as a solid play on the field, right? As well as being able to now maximize with what Jaquan Brisker's talents are, with moving Jaquan Brisker more out of the box than he's ever been out of the box in his first 2 years in the league. What Kevin Byard has brought in being dependable, being somebody that you can rely on, and just in the leadership that he's brought to the Chicago Bears team has just been great. And this is why some of the signings, and I get it, people look at what Ryan Poles didn't do and they let that, make them feel away, and that's fine, that's valid. But it's the solid pickups like this that Ryan Poles makes. It's the solid acquisitions like this that when you look at it and how it plays into the totality of the team, right? It's easy to look at a player individually for what they bring, but what Ryan Poles has done a lot of times, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is looked at how the pairings work, right? How bringing in a player and it pairs with their overall group and what that brings to it. And so right now, Kevin Byard, to me, has had such an understanding of the system, for one, and a leadership quality that he's brought to the Chicago Bears team that we've seen. This is the best secondary in the game of football. I truly believe that. Now, the stats don't always measure up to that, and we got to see how this secondary is going to measure up once the better opponents start coming in, right? But overall, what we've seen through this offense, what we've seen through the synergy from the pass rush, the pass coverage, and the linebackers, all 3 levels of that defense, is something special to watch, especially for those that watch the game to actually break down the game at a higher level. You see what Kevin Byard's doing inside the box, outside the box, in coverage, right? All those things that Byard brings and being able to be that free safety for the Chicago Bears has been really fun and interesting to watch. And I, for one, love it, man. I love what we're seeing from this team. I love what we're seeing from Kevin Byard. And I just love how this defense overall is stacking up as a whole. And I wanted to give some credit for that in Kevin Byard and to see that what this continues. Of course, we want to get Jaquan Brisker back healthy, right? We missed him last game. We need to get Terrell Smith back out there as well, to get him back out there and what he's able to bring with Tyreek Stevenson, with Kyler Gordon, get that whole secondary completely healthy on the back half of the season, because we're going to need it once the games start getting tougher and we start playing those interdivision games. But the acquisition of Kevin Byard and Elijah Hicks and Jonathan Owens, and just having what we have there in a totality in that secondary, has just been great to watch and great to see. And I said it before, the Bears got to find their safety of the future to pair with Jaquan Brisker long term. But right now, Kevin Byard and what he's brought to the Chicago Bears team, you got to give him love. He's on a 2-year deal, and so far through the first 6 games of that deal, it's been nothing but pluses from Kevin Byard, at least for me. You guys can let me know how you feel. Now, one thing that came out last week that caused a lot of concern, especially from Big Kev, who's talked about it multiple times, is that we found out that Shane Waldron wasn't scripting the first 15 plays. Now, he wasn't just completely freewheeling it. He went from a set of predetermined plays, and he did that, but he wasn't flat out scripting that. Now, we've heard from DJ Moore and Matt Eberflus on why the decision to go to a more scripted a foundation has helped the team. I'm saying this: you can go into the game knowing the set plays that we're going to go in and just be on the details. You don't have to worry about being shocked by a play call that we have not run as much in the week. So having the first 15 is a big deal. Matt Eberflus adding on to that to say this: we always have openers that we practice, and that's a big part of it. So we have several plays listed as openers. Openers are plays that you're going to use on the first and second down, and obviously you go to your third down script based on distances. That was just more of communicating with our leadership of the offense, with Shane and myself, to be able to put those in order. Put those in order so guys know exactly what play 1 was, play 2, and so forth. That was the first third down plays were kind of working that way. And so going to scripted, right, and having that and having more confidence. We've talked a lot about having confidence in your play calls. It's obvious when you see teams that that players don't have confidence in what's being called out there, right? And so going to a more scripted foundation, which a lot of the NFL does, most of the NFL I would say does, it's just smart, right? It's just smart football, especially for a team that you're trying to get everybody on the same page. You're trying to get out of a rut offensively, things like that. So, I keep commending Shane Waldron for his adaptability, right? And for him hearing his players out when things were going bad, he's heard what his players were asking for, and he's adapted. And so far, it's paid off for better success, right? Yes, the last 3 wins, you can definitely look at that. But really, it started in the game before that. The second half of the game before that is really where things started clicking for the Chicago Bears, where you started to see this offense is starting to open things up. And to see also Caleb Williams with the wrist pad on, the confidence of him running that offense, the confidence he has in that huddle, right? This all plays a part into each other. Everything has to go in sequence, and you can't have confidence in something that you don't fully understand. And so Shane Waldron deserved all the criticism that was coming his way, all of it, right? In no way am I saying that criticism to Shane Waldron was unwarranted or any of that. No, it was all warranted. But we also have to acknowledge that he's adapted since then. He's heard his players out. He's heard them out on what was concerning them, and he's adapted. When you look at the play calling in last week's game, yes, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but you saw a much more inspired play calling. And getting back to that is a big and key thing for the Chicago Bears team. So as we continue to build that confidence, as we continue to build up what we're trying to do offensively, I think there's a reason why the offensive line has looked better, why the offense has been able to move the ball more consistently, while we're putting up more points over the last 3 weeks. The defenses that we're playing play a part in that as well. But listen, I've seen good teams lose against bad teams, right? I've seen bad teams look bad against other bad teams, right? So the fact that the Bears are looking more solid right now, that's a point in the right direction. We just got to continue to see that out and to see where it's going to go for the Chicago Bears. But all right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into the last topic for today. And I want to talk about Ryan Poles. One of the biggest criticisms, fairly, on Ryan Poles is his ability to identify talent on that offensive line. And that was highlighted by giving Nate Davis a 3-year, mostly guaranteed deal, well, fully guaranteed through the first 2 years, and partially guaranteed in year 3, giving him that deal. And when you look at it, there are a lot of people that were former Titans fans that actually didn't mind losing Nate Davis, despite what the PFF grades and things told you. And it just comes down to Nate Davis and his motivation. That has always been a question here since his first practice for the Chicago Bears. And that's been something that has continually showed and reared its ugly head. And Nate Davis being now inactive last Sunday, which seems like it's going to be something that continues, which we got a lot of players that are healthy scratch. Velus Jones, Dominique Robinson, Nate Davis. These are all players that are going to be healthy scratches now for probably the remainder of the season, right? But I will say this. I got to give credit with Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, the whole coaching staff, everybody. When Matt Pryor came in and Matt Pryor showed you what he can bring as a starter, they placed him as that starter. With Ryan Bates coming back, he's eligible to be activated after the bye week as well when we come back from that. So we could very well see Ryan Bates activated from IR as well, which is going to be another player, right? And so Ryan Poles and the team not allowing money to get in the way of moving off of a player that has not performed, who has not been motivated, who's just not giving you the standard of what you should accept as a starter in the Chicago Bears uniform. Ryan Poles has learned from his mistakes. Now, we got to see how much further he's going to learn from. Like, I would say this, when you really look at Ryan Poles, every mistake that he's made, he's learned from, right? Every mistake that he's made, he's learned from. The trade for Chase Claypool, he turned around and gave a same round pick to get Montez Sweat. He learned from that mistake. He learned to evaluate that better, right? And then you went out and got Keenan Allen. You got Rome Odunze, right? He learned from that mistake. He learned from that. And so hopefully Ryan Poles now learns from this mistake that he made with Nate Davis and is more particular about who he brings in here on the offensive line, because we see now how important that offensive line is to protecting our quarterback, and especially when you're trying to develop a rookie quarterback now, right? So moving on from Nate Davis, who more than likely is going to be cut next year. He will turn into, I think, a little over $1 million in dead cap, but most of that comes back to the salary cap, which the Bears can then look to move on and get another lineman in here at the bare minimum. So, listen, got to give credit where credit's due. Nate Davis needed to sit his ass down because Nate Davis wasn't bringing anything that helped the Chicago Bears team. We had a voicemail not too long ago saying that, well, the Bears might as well play him. They got to pay. No, you don't pay. You got to pay him regardless. Even if you were to waive him, you got to cut. You got to pay him. At this point, fuck Nate Davis. Let him sit his ass down. Now, if he decides to bring something in practice or whatever else it is and shows that maybe this motivated him some, I don't have faith in that. But Nate Davis needed to go, and he does not belong. He does not deserve to be in a Chicago Bears uniform. He just doesn't. And so, we'll see what happens there. Now, lastly, before we go, it seems like the Jacksonville Jaguars, at being 1-5 on the season, have gone into sell mode. Right? They made a trade yesterday when they send defensive tackle Roy Robert Harris to the Seahawks, to get that. And so now reportedly Ryan Poles is also monitoring what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. Because right now the Jacksonville Jaguars have Scherff, who's a right guard and a 5-time Pro Bowler, who could be somebody that the Jacksonville Jaguars, at being 1-5, could also be looking to sell off. And reportedly, it would take a 5th-round pick at most to get Scherff in here for the Chicago Bears. So, with that said, if the Bears do decide to look at this, I wouldn't be mad if they bring Brian Scherff in. Listen, Ryan Poles is a guy, he's an opportunist, and he's a guy that always keeps his head on a pivot to look at what deals are around the NFL. And if the Jacksonville Jaguars are selling off pieces and Brandon Schereff ends up being one of those guys who's moved before the deadline, which is in about 3 weeks, 3 weeks is when the trade deadline's coming in. If that ends up being the case, I would love it. And so hopefully the Bears are monitoring it, because I tell you what, Ryan Poles is good for his trade deadline deals. And Brandon Schereff is a guy that I would love to come in here and help shore up this guard rotation. Because then at that point, you can bring him in as guard. You can still have Matt Pryor there as a depth piece. Ryan Bates can be your starting center. And then maybe we have an offensive line that's able to compete over the second half of the season with that NFC North that, again, is trying to get to the quarterback. So keep your head on, keep your eyes open for that. The Jacksonville Jaguars could be looking to sell off a lot of pieces. So we'll see what happens there. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. I'm sorry, that's the wrong voicemail. 270-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.